Parenting is hard. It can also be rewarding, but getting through the grind to the good stuff can be a real struggle. And all of us could use some inspiration, encouragement, or just a reminder that we aren't alone on this journey. Sometimes even parents need a timeout.
Hey, welcome to Parents Time Out. I'm Kim Botto. I lead Kids Club and Student Ministry at Crossroads. I'm also the mom of 5 and the grandma of 7. And this is the time of the week where we just take a big old deep breath. We put the kids to bed, we sit down, and we gather together for some conversation with adults. And if you are watching, we'd love to know where you're from. So just tell us where you're from. And our guest tonight, I'm super happy to have my dear friend, Latasha Patrick. Latasha is HR director at Crossroads. She's also the mom of Maya, who graduated a year ago. I can't believe it's been a year ago from high school. Yes. Latasha is a single mama. And my friend, Chris Combs, who is the executive director of Coalition of Care. He's very active in the foster and adoptive community. He has supported literally thousands of families through your work. So Chris, you supported my family, so thank you for that. And he's the dad of 2 kids that he adopted from Nicaragua as a single dad. So we are so glad to have both of you here. And as we wait for people to hop on, let's think of a question we can ask. Okay, we've just come out of quarantine. A lot of people have, and some of us are kind of in quarantine still. We've done some projects around the house. Latasha, I got to see some of your handiwork. So I want to know from you two, and if you guys are watching in, tell us, what's your COVID project been? Chris and Latasha? Do you have a COVID project?
Go ahead, Latasha.
Well, I still have a COVID project, I'm embarrassed to say. There is a toilet in my dining room right now. I kind of took apart my bathroom and painted and kind of redid the floors and kind of redid the vanity, and all of it's still sitting somewhere. So apparently I'm really good at taking things apart, not so great at putting them back together.
Yes, you've actually taken apart 2 bathrooms, haven't you?
Well, I did. I took apart the sinks in my master bathroom. I just put new faucets on. Yep. Yeah.
So Latasha has a toilet in her dining room. Chris, what about you?
So a handful of projects, one of which has never gotten off the ground. I've got one of those old school Four Seasons rooms off the back of my house, and I'm trying to find a contractor that'll tear it down and rebuild it and add on to my kitchen, but I haven't had any luck finding someone during COVID. So if you know a good contractor, let me know. But have had some success in gardening. It's my stress relief. We planted, I've got my son out helping me. We planted a lot of flowers, and we actually just recently got a vegetable garden in the ground. So we're hoping for good eating this summer.
Good. Okay, so if anybody's watching and you are a good contractor that can help Chris out, or you're a plumber who'd like to help Latasha get the toilet out of her dining room, so next time I visit, I'm not tempted, contact them. We'll give you the emails at the end of this. It's fun to see some other people's projects. Amy's cleaning out clothes to donate. And Abby Rasmussen, do you have a toilet in your dining room too? Maybe. Okay. So next, you guys, why don't you tell those who are watching a little bit more about yourself? Chris, why don't you go first?
Yeah, single dad, was a foster dad for a season, and then started doing go trips into Latin America. Stumbled into an orphanage about 15 years ago and felt God called me to do something in the lives of a little boy and his little sister. Ended up on an adoption trail that was a long, slow journey, but incredibly fruitful. And my son and daughter at age 10 and 15 landed here in the U.S. almost exactly 10 years ago. So I'm an adoptive dad. I spent years in the business world, and then a bunch of years on a church staff, as I said, leading mission teams and doing local outreach. And now for the last 9 years as director of Coalition of Care, helping to mobilize families to care for vulnerable kids.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Latasha.
Yeah, well, you mentioned that I have an 18-year-old Maya, so I've always been a single mom. I've never been married. I and my daughter has always lived with me. We moved away from Las Vegas probably in 2014. That's where we're from. And she's pretty much only been raised here in Las Vegas, I mean, in Cincinnati. We have family and she has family on the West Coast. And so she spends a lot of time back and forth with our family. And let's see, Kim just mentioned that she graduated from college last year. And this year she'll be at the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music studying musical theater. So I'm really excited. She's got lots of drama inside and out. She's a lovely kid.
She is lovely and dramatic, really dramatic, in a good way, in all the best possible ways.
All the best ways.
So the reason we invited you two is I have found I learned so much from parents of all kinds who are in different situations than me, different life stages. And you guys, both parenting kids as single parents, we want to learn from you. So if you have a question you'd like to ask Latasha or Chris, you can just put it in the comments and we'll get to them. But I have a question first. And it's like, in the past, I can't imagine how difficult it would be parenting by yourself, but I know you both have big communities around you. So in the past, who have you invited into your kids' lives and how did you even do that?
I'll jump in first. First of all, I think it needs to be organic, right? It's not something you can really force in terms of inviting kids and people into your kids' lives. So who do you know and who do you trust and who's a good role model? And then a key part of that, I think, is who do my kids connect with, right? You watch your kids and you observe, and sometimes you can just see there's a little bit of a connection there, a little bit of a bond there. And then with a son and daughter, part of my thought process in figuring out who can connect and spend time with my kids is just for my daughter, who's a positive female role model, and for my son, who's a positive male role model. And then how you do that, I think you do it casually and slowly, right? You don't want to scare people off. Like there's been times where I've seen an incredible guy connecting with my son and say, hey, will you meet with him once a week for the rest of his life? And you don't want to scare him off. And so a lot of times it's just, can we get together as two families? Can we have dinner together? Can he join what you're doing with your kids? So organic and natural, and just follow where there's connections, and sometimes great things happen.
That's a really good point, because I think we live in this world where we want things to happen quickly. So we just want to be a matchmaker. We want to find the perfect family for you, match you up, and everything be great. So really then, Chris, what you have to do is you have to put yourself out there to meet more people, to even have an opportunity to find somebody. Yes, because those connections start with my connections, right? So when I'm connected to people and friends and family and so forth, then my kids get connected. And if I'm isolated, they're isolated. That's right. That's good. Latasha, what about you? Thanks, Chris.
Well, very similar to Chris, except for I kind of built in some community for myself and my daughter. I joined an organization specifically designed for the parents of African-American children. And so I joined this organization, and we basically got fairly instantly, I don't know, 64 moms, 64 families that were kind of at our disposal. And some of the sweetest stories that I can recall, one day I was at work and a woman from the organization called me, and she said, hey, my name's Tansy, and I know that we're going to be at the such and such meeting today. And I know that our kids go to school across the street from each other. And why don't you just let me pick her up? I'll take her to dinner and we'll meet you at the meeting. And I mean, this is what she's saying all in one conversation. And I'm looking at the phone like, wait, what? Who are you? And she's like, oh, yeah, I'm Tansy and I'm in the organization and we're, whatever. And so she has actually turned out to be one of my very, very good friends. She went on to say that her mom was a single mom, and she knew what it felt like, and she just wanted to serve us. And she picked Maya up that day from school, and our families have vacationed together. It's been really quite sweet. An additional bonus, this story always made me want to cry. so I won't cry today. But one of the dads came up to me during December, X number of years ago, and said, I'm making it up, like, what's Maya doing on December 15th? And I said, I don't know, nothing, whatever. And he said, well, all the dads usually take all the kids out to go get Christmas presents for the moms, and we take them to breakfast. And I'm just wondering if I would like to come with. And first of all, how would I have ever known? Because her dad doesn't live here.
Yes.
And so from that time on, I got a Christmas gift, like just because of that one thing every year. So it's been very, very sweet. It's been amazing.
And that all started from the group that you started? Was you got 60 some quickly?
Yeah, I didn't start the organization. I joined it. It was already an organization that I joined into for the moms of African American kids in Cincinnati.
But that just shows you that it did grow so quickly that parents are looking for community, whether they're single parents or not.
Absolutely.
We have a question from Amy, if we can get that put up. I struggle to find the opportunities and time to meet others to build a community for myself and my son.
That's a great question. Before I joined this organization, I actually saw people used to put notes in my daughter's mailbox and say, hey, I understand you're new to the city. Would you like to hang out? And what I would say to you, was it Amy? I would recommend, once kids are able to go back to school, ask your son, who do you like in the class? Who's your buddy in the class? And put a note in his or her backpack and ask the parents, hey, can we go to the museum or to the park or whatever is going to be open and acceptable once school starts? All they could do is say no, but most of the time people will say yes to a play date or two.
Yeah, and some thoughts. Go ahead, Kim.
No, you, Chris.
Just wanted to mention a couple of good principles that I can't say that I'm great at, but one of them is just prioritizing, right? If it's 4 o'clock and you're scheduled to go do something with your child, it's so tempted to stay another half an hour and finish work or do whatever task you're working on. And so prioritize so that when those opportunities come up, you actually get to them and don't skip over them. And the other thing that comes to mind is sometimes it's just boldness. I live in a neighborhood where a lot of people walk and a lot of people are in their front yard. And a lot of people are playing basketball in their driveway. And my introvert tendency is to walk or ride my bike on the street, and I'll wave and I'll maybe say hi, but I just keep going. And I've learned a little bit to sometimes stop and pull your bike off to the side of the driveway and just chat with them. And once in a while, someone might invite you to come and sit with them. Other times they'll just chat, but to have the boldness to force some situations where connection can happen.
That's great. And I think too, so often we make it too complicated. We wait until our house is clean, or we wait until we have the perfect outing to invite somebody into. Just make peanut butter jelly on the front lawn. And that is when we do simple things like that, we're going to be more likely to be invited to somebody's house, because if we invite somebody in to something fancy schmancy, they are going to be very reluctant to invite us over. So yeah, that's a great question, Amy. Keep it simple, and we hope that you're able to find space to find community. Abby Rasmussen has a great question. And one of the reasons we're doing this too, it's not just to talk to single parents, but we want to know, for those of us who are in families where we have a partner or a spouse, what is the best way to support our friends who are single? And what can I offer them as a dual parent household? Thanks, Abby.
Go ahead, Latasha.
Well, I thought you had a really great answer, and I was going to steal it, so I feel like you should say it.
No, go ahead.
One of the things that we talked about earlier was, invite us to dinner, invite us on vacation. Sometimes when there's just 2 of us or 3 of us in Chris's situation, it's difficult to do vacation, but to add us to your vacation plans is actually kind of easy, and we'd love to go with you. So next time you're going to Florida, invite.
Yeah. And I'll echo that. I think the key is to think of and to see a single parent the same as you would see a married parent. If there's something happening in the neighborhood, invite them in. If a group of married couples are going to hang out at the microbrewery, and invite the single person. Don't see them as different. I think sometimes we get concerned from both directions, where a married couple might see it as socially awkward to invite a single person, or a single person might feel socially awkward invited into a married scenario. I'll just speak for myself. Most of my friends are married, and I love when they invite me in, because when they don't invite me in, I sit home by myself. So invite us in, whatever the situation is. I promise I won't make it awkward and let you off the hook that you don't have to feel that it's awkward. But we're people too. We're parents too. We're adults too, and we like to go to restaurants and so forth. And so it's interesting, because in this era of social media, you hear so much about adolescents freaking out about what they see posted on social media, and the whole thing about FOMO, fear of missing out. It's interesting that now, many decades out of my teen years, I experienced that, because I'll see a dinner party where 5 of my married couple friends are hanging out. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm friends with all those people. And at no time have I thought that someone has specifically said, let's not invite Chris. But sometimes it just doesn't pop into mind to invite the single person. So I would say treat us like any other adult, and remember to invite us in.
So even if I'm having a party with all married couples, or all married couples and their kids, you're saying that's not awkward, invite you. And if you don't want to come, you'll tell me, right?
Right.
So I don't have to say no for you. That's good. You were talking about sometimes people think single parents feel a certain way. What presumptions do you think people make about single parents?
I don't know that there's the stigma or presumptions that there used to be. Cultures change, societies change. I think there was a lot more stigma about being a single parent, whether that meant having a child out of wedlock, or there's a lot of stigma around divorce. I think less so now, for better and for worse. And perhaps maybe it's a little bit different for a single mom. I don't know, because I'm not that, although every Mother's Day, both my kids give me Mother's Day cards, which is very sweet of them. But from a dad standpoint, to me, there is no stigma. I think if anything, there is some curiosity, and maybe even some self-reflection, because unfortunately, men in culture worldwide aren't typically known as the main caregiver or the primary caregiver. So in a situation where you're the only caregiver, then by definition you're the primary caregiver. And so I'm bold in my parenting, and part of what I want to do is to show the men that I know, that I work with, that are friends with, that some of them are great dads, and some of them are passive dads or inactive dads, or aren't even sure that they want to be a dad. And so I'm trying to play a role that says this is goodness, this is important, and my kids need me, and hopefully that inspires others. So I don't necessarily think there's a stigma. It's more of like, you're doing what, and you're doing why, and you chose to be a single dad. And I said, yep, I did. I love it, and wish I'd done it sooner.
Thanks, Chris. Latasha, what about you? Anything that you think people might think about a single parent that isn't true, or something you'd want them to know about a single parent?
I would just say that I know as a mom, I want the same thing for my kid that you probably want for your kid or children. I care about her husband. I pray for her husband. I pray for her children, my grandchildren. I pray that, I wonder, did I make the right decision about whatever the school was, or did I make the right decision when I made her go to bed at 8:30? I mean, all the things that I wrestle with as just as a parent, I think, because I hear my other parent friends say the same thing. So I think we're parents. It just so happens that maybe the burden, the majority of the burden rests on me, at least for a time. My daughter has a dad who loves her. He doesn't live in the same city, but she definitely has a dad who loves her. But the majority of the parenting was on me. And so the same things that I think other parents are concerned about or worry about or are excited about are the same things that I worry about and am excited about and anticipate. So we're not different. I guess I mean, we're different in that there's not two of us, but we're not different in terms of the things that we want for our families and for our children.
And isn't that true so often? We look at people who seem like their circumstances are so much different than us, but really we have just as much, if not more similarities than we think we do. I know my husband volunteered at a shelter where families lived where they were homeless. And the first night he did it, he came home. He said their bedtime routines are just like ours. They put the kids to bed and then they get up and they say they want a drink of water. Then they put them to bed again and then they come back and say, I want a kiss. And so I think just spending time with people who are different helps us appreciate and see how the ways that we are similar. What about, we all have regrets, right? And in parenting, we have regrets. I'm sure, I know I do. Are there any regrets that you have had in parenting that we could learn from, that you'd be willing to share?
So many.
Latasha?
Gosh, there's so many regrets. Let me think.
You're a great mother.
You're so kind. I would say don't parent out of fear. Don't parent your children out of fear and ask for help early and often. People won't judge you. And if they do judge you, find other people. But do not parent out of fear. I was a single mother. I didn't, well, I guess I did choose to be a single parent. I didn't adopt like Chris did with his family. And my fear has been for a long time that my daughter would be a single parent and that she wouldn't get married and all of those things. And I probably did lots of things early on that were based of fear. And I just don't believe I don't think that that's what God wants from us. I don't think he wants us to parent out of fear. I think he wants us to parent out of love. And I think he wants us to parent in community. So don't forget to ask for help.
Yeah,
good.
I would.
That's true for all of us.
I would list in terms of regrets. I mean, 1,000 little ones, right? Every time you snap at your child when you wish you had been more patient or connected before you corrected. But I can't say any big ones. I think a couple that come to mind. One regret is just not taking more vacations. It's a little bit. I don't know if it's harder. It's a little bit different as a single parent to vacation, but a lot of times. There's just a lot of excuses and it doesn't get done. So I wish we had traveled more, we'd vacationed more. And I throw that out there as not just in the past tense, but I want to vacation more and I want to travel more. As my kids become young adults, sometimes they're part of that, sometimes they're not. But definitely take more time to travel and vacation. The other regret that I have is I wish I'd done it much sooner. And so maybe just a challenge. Again, in my case, I'm an adoptive dad and was a foster dad. And that might be where some of you are. It might be where some of you are thinking about being, but you're not sure. And if so, I would say be brave and be bold and jump into it sooner than later, right? I was much older than I should have been when I finally made the plunge. And wish I'd done it sooner. So be bold in that and take more vacations.
Yeah, and I'll say on the vacation piece, like we talked earlier about inviting people over, it doesn't have to be a trip to a fancy beach days away. It can be going to a local campground, borrow a tent from somebody. It can be, we would take our kids to Lexington and stay in a motel where we'd get, buy one night, get another one free. There's all kinds of things that we can do that don't cost a ton of money. As single parents, I can't imagine how difficult it is to find margin and just to increase your patience. So how do you do that when there's not somebody in the house that you can just say, hey, take over?
Yeah. So for me, I've got a little bit of margin in the fact that my kids were older when they came into my family, so we weren't changing diapers or making bottles, and now they're young adults, so makes it a little bit easier. But still, I think key to margin is being very intentional and setting aside time. I'll just say before and after. So before I walk in the home where I know my two kids are, and maybe I'm pulling into the driveway, into the garage, just be very intentional and taking, sometimes it's only 10 seconds, sometimes it's 20 minutes to sit in the garage, be sure you turn your car engine off, and let go of the drama of whatever just happened at work or in that conference call or whatever the case may be. Take a deep breath and say, I'm about to walk into this house. I know my son is going to greet me and he's going to do such and such and such, and it's going to frustrate me. So I'm going to be prepared for it. I'm going to be patient about it, and I'm going to be equipped for it. So taking that time, and when I do that, it goes well. And I can't say I always do it. Sometimes you rush from one thing to another, and you walk into a situation where your kids are having a meltdown, and you're just not emotionally or spiritually prepared for it. So take the time to be prepared, and then the same on the back end. So at the end of spending time with your kids, at the end of the day, my thing that I've started doing this COVID is I get on a bike. It's usually late at night and it's dark, and I'm probably doing all kind of safety violations, but there's nobody on the streets, and I'm riding my bike by myself, and I'm decompressing and building margin in that way.
That's good. I'm going to buy you some lights for your bike, but that's a great idea. I really am. Look for it. Latasha, what about you? How do you build margin?
I would say, and this is not for everybody, it's not always the case, but if you can, outsource. So during the school year, we paid for somebody to help take care of our house, like kind of come and clean it every week or every other week or whatever. And then during the summer, I stopped that because Maya would be in Vegas with her dad, and I would hire somebody to mow the lawn. And so I just felt like if there was space that I could have margin to enjoy my kid and not to always be doing something, do it. Before food, the mailbox foods were super in style. We had those a lot because it was just very, very helpful. I recognize that that's an expense, and so it may not be for you, but if you can barter. If your neighbor can mow your lawn, great, have the neighbor mow the lawn. If you can switch off babysitting with people, but figure out ways to barter if financially you're not able to just kind of outsource things, but totally outsource if you can.
Chris and Latasha, our time is almost up. And this has been so helpful to me as a mom, as an experienced mom. So thank you for just your words of wisdom and for sharing so vulnerably. And as we close out, Chris, we always like to end with just something for our parents to try over the next week or to think about. What would you like to suggest that they do?
Yeah, I would say try this. Try just inviting a single parent to something that's happening this weekend or in the next week. If it's you're grilling burgers on the back patio, don't worry about whether the leaves are raked up or the patio swept or whether your house has been vacuumed. Just invite them over, and as Latasha said, be bold and invite a single person on a vacation. And one thought that comes to mind in that is, don't be fearful that if you're inviting a single person and their family to join you on vacation, that they necessarily have to be in the same cabin or house or tent with you. If you invite me on vacation, I'd be happy to rent the house on the beach next to you or the hotel room down the hall. And so take away that kind of awkwardness and say, fun people, let's get together. So try this. Try to invite a single person this weekend or the next week or two to something that you're doing anyway.
That's so good. That's so important. And Chris and Latasha, I'm sure there's people that are watching that have questions that maybe they want to ask you that we didn't have time to answer, or maybe they prefer not to put it on social media. So we're going to put up Latasha and Chris's emails, and they have already said that they're very happy to talk to you. So email them. And I know I have both learned so much from them just in the years that I've known them both. So please reach out to both of them. And then as we close, Latasha, will you just pray for the parents who are watching, please?
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you so much. God, thank you. Thank you for this time out. Thank you that not only was it good just to be around other parents, Lord, but I just believe that your spirit was present. God, would you bless the listeners, the viewers of this video? God, would you be with them? God, would you give them capacity and courage to either invite somebody on vacation or accept the invitation? God, would you provide margin for them? Would you give them wisdom to know who to bring into their children's lives and who not to? God, you called us to be parents, Lord, and I just dedicate our children back to you, Lord, because we are only stewards of these little people for a short amount of time, but they are always yours, God. So we recognize that and we trust you and we thank you for trusting us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Latasha. And parents, thanks for watching. Next week, we're going to be back with David and Lori Valentine. They are two fun parents. And if you feel, Latasha knows, and if you feel like you maybe are fun challenge and you don't connect with your kids like you'd want to, they are great people to learn from. And I promise you, when you hear them, you're not going to come away going, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. They're going to give you some practical ideas. So we'll see you next week. Chris and Latasha, thank you guys.
Thank
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Night.